House Bill HB 2248. The short title of this bill is Corporation Commission Electric Generation Resources. And this bill was introduced by Representative Griffith, and it would be heard in the House Natural Resources, Energy, and Water on 26, which will be Tuesday. Now, what this bill does, and there's going to be a lot, the other side is going to try to obfuscate this quite a bit, tell us that it's this, it's that, or the other. This does not do a whole lot of except one thing. It prohibits the Corporation Commission from regulating the type of electricity producing resources that can be used in Arizona. What that means very simply is that they're not telling you anything other than, look, you can't just, because you like solar, you cannot force it upon us without approval by the legislature. If you like wind, true, but you can't force it upon us without approval by the legislation. And of course, they did just that in 2020, and apparently this is a bill in response to that. And you had some notes on that, Archie, that I think are relevant regarding the.
I've always got notes that are relevant, you know. At least in my mind, they may not be relevant in your mind, but in mine, they're mine. Yeah, okay. As I read this bill, there is one section to it that I think is the key to the entire bill, and that's section B. And that section reads, "This section does not apply to any policy, decision, or rule adopted before June 30th, 2020. So what does that tell me? That tells me that whoever drafted this bill, that there was something that was adopted prior to June 30th, after June 30th of 2020, that the legislator did not like. And so they're attempting to basically vacate the ruling of the Corporation Commission in whatever that particular section might have been, and I don't think this is the way to do that.
Well, if that's not the way to do it, how would you do it? Now, keep in mind, we have a situation in the Corporation Commission now that is not what we expected. We expected to have a Republican majority and a lot of common sense being exercised by the Corporation Commission. Well, first of all, we did not get all the Republicans that we wanted. We had one that did not get elected and a Democrat got there instead. And then we had one so-called Republican that the first thing that she did, or one of the first things that she did, was join with the Democrats for her own benefit. So we have a Corporation Commission that is going to be problematic for years to come. And as much as I hate to have, if the legislature is going to have so much control over the Corporation Commission, why do we need a Corporation Commission? Well, we do still need it for other things, because keep in mind that this bill doesn't do anything about rates, it doesn't do anything about anything else. All it says is that thou shalt not dictate what kind of energy that would be up to the marketplace or whatever. You cannot do that without approval of the legislature.
Jose, I don't disagree with that. The problem
he never disagrees with me, does he?
The problem that I have with this, if this bill is passed, it will not become effective until July 1, 2021. And it has retroactive effect to June 30th of 2020. And you pass a bill that has retroactive effect, and it gets real scary. You do not want to pass a bill that has retroactive effect. It just becomes too scary.
Okay.
So what happens if you don't pass it then?
Well, you can make it prospective. You can say, from this day forward, you can't do that. But you can't say, you did it, 6 months ago, and we're going to undo it. That's retroactive effect, and you can't do that.
Okay. There's another thing to be considering here, and there is an amendment process for these bills. Okay, the bill could be amended, and we could to say, okay, fine, this is a fine bill, but we don't want to see it retroactive. We would like to see it from this point forward, and that would be a good amendment for it. But again, I have no power to do that, and neither do any of us.
We don't either.
But maybe a legislator out there would decide, hey, we're going to, maybe a member of the House Natural Resources and Energy and Water Committee would be willing to introduce an amendment to say, okay, this is not going to be retroactive. It's going to be from this point forward.
Well, I don't have any problem as long as the bill's not retroactive. When you make it retroactive, to me, you've just got real problems.
Yeah,
because
that
if you start to make this one retroactive, what other bills can you make retroactive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
not a good idea.
point.
That would change. That would fix the problem. Just change that part of the wording.
Well, I hope there's some time to do that. When is it going to be voted on? Next week?
Well, actually, you can introduce an amendment almost any time. Well, not quite, but a few times. But one time to do it would be early on, and the committee hearing would be on Tuesday, and that would be a time when an amendment could be introduced. The amendment would not really be approved until the committee of the whole later on, but it can be introduced at that point. When the committee members, if they do vote in favor of this bill, when they issue a do pass, what do you call
Recommendation.
it? A do pass recommendation. We'll get into the weeds here a little bit. But instead of DP, it will be DPA. Do pass as amended, and that would solve the problem.
Well, you guys both just taught me something. This is awesome.
Well, we learned something. I hate to admit it, but I do learn a lot from Archie and from Connie and everybody else.
I learned a lot from me too.
But, yeah, of course.
Yeah, your head.
He's a recovering lawyer. He's no longer a lawyer. He was never a lawyer in Arizona, so people don't be calling him for legal advice. But
No.
but he is recovering, and I guess
We work on it.
He's recovering a little nicely. Okay, we'll buy that.
Anyway, he seems friendly enough.